Geno Smith's game-winning drive might be the turning point for the whole entire season for the Seattle Seahawks.
Somehow, despite all the injuries the Seahawks are having, they have backups coming in and playing well, and they've helped us get to 1-1, and that's what matters.
It's time to tap in. You are listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast with two brothers, George and Sammy. Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Let's do this.
Okie dokie.
What a game.
I have my iPad ready to go. I got to see some stats. You know what the first stat I'm very interested in looking at?
The defense or Geno?
Neither. I was very interested to see what Tyler Lockett's night was, because it was pretty good. Because I know he had those 2 touchdowns. 8 catches, 59 yards, 2 touchdowns. Can't ask for much better.
No, that's like one of the best receiving performances of the season, probably, in general.
Yeah. Good for him. God, he's so good. There still hasn't been a Tyler Lockett what's the word, regression year yet.
Right.
Crazy.
He's still exactly just as good as he's been his whole career.
I love it.
Me too.
All right. What a game. Detroit definitely felt like a playoff atmosphere too. The noise and the just whatever the hell was going on. It was loud.
Especially that fourth quarter when they got the ball, stopped us on a Geno Smith sack. And it just felt like there almost felt like there's no way that Detroit was going to go down and not at least tie the game and send it to overtime. It felt like it was inevitable at that point.
Yeah, I was for some reason I was confident we weren't going to give up a touchdown and lose.
Same.
But I was definitely in my head there's no way this doesn't go to overtime. There's no way we just get the defense was bad, but it always found a way to do what it needed to do at a specific moment. Like the fumble to start the half, the pick six, there was 2 fourth down stops that we had. Outside of those major plays though, the defense played like crap, but it just made the plays at the right time. So it worked out. And I felt that way on the last drive. I was like, they'll get a stop somehow and force a field goal because they're doing just enough.
Just enough. And, speaking of that, they forced a turnover at the end of the half. They scored a touchdown. And, I wrote this down on my notes, and I was like, this is really interesting. Now, there's been, if you count overtime, right, we've had 5, half starting possessions. First quarter, first game, first quarter, second game, halftime, both games, et cetera, plus an overtime, to start the game, a new, quarter, new half, right? We've scored in 4 out of those 5 possessions. I don't know what it is, but if we can do that the whole game, that'd be great. But it seems like we're, really well prepared in the first drive of each game. We scored a field goal and a touchdown. We scored a touchdown in this first drive of this game, and we scored a touchdown in overtime. So, whatever we're doing during those plays in those situations, if we can emulate our offense to be around that'd be really nice.
Yeah, it feels like it gets a little stale, but I feel like we've ran into this issue for the last 5 years where it's if the Seahawks just played like that, but then the offense gets stale. And then there's a lot of situations. We did it once today. They went for it on 4th down and got it on a 4th and 1. But there was other points today where you just look at it and you say maybe this offense sometimes would have a bigger spark and it wouldn't get as stale if we did. I love what the Lions do. You could feel in certain spots that they were playing 4-down football. It wasn't a question, right? They run the ball on 3rd down, and you're like, wait a second. Oh, because they're playing 4 downs. I feel like that helps keep your offense less stale. I feel like the Seahawks sometimes that's where the staleness comes from, where they get hot out of the gate and do something good. But when they get the ball back, there's just some staleness when it's you're not going to go for it. There's nothing special going on the offense. But at the end of the day, it worked out. We got the win, so I can't really complain too much.
No.
It was interesting, to say the least. I think there was a lot of really good things about this game, but there's a lot of things to clean up.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. I think there'll be better times and better moments to talk about what we need to clean up because this game was so emotionally great and it's such an emotional, fun win that I'd rather just focus on that today and then leave it till next week to where I'm going to talk about what I'm worried about. But that game just felt big. That felt like an emotional win. That overtime drive felt huge. I felt honestly, if we lost that game, it could have took this season to a point where Geno Smith really does regress, and Geno Smith doesn't have the year that he had last year. But I feel like that last drive of the game to score a touchdown coming out of overtime is going to give him confidence throughout the rest of the season. And I think the Geno Smith we thought we were going to hopefully get the same one we got last year will happen. Just because when those are like moments in the season, either you start off 0-2 and that's because your quarterback took a sack 17 yards and really had a really bad last couple drives, or and then you force overtime and he came back and answered. I really think that's a game, like a season-changing type of drive. And I know it sounds like hyperbolic in the second game of the season, but I really don't think it's hyperbolic. I think there's moments in every sports team season where you look back at it and say that was the moment where everything either A, turned around, or B, turned around the wrong way.
Yeah, I think what would you say is a season what? Changing?
It changes the trajectory of the season.
I would probably rephrase that personally because there's nothing changed about the season because there's 2 games, and I think it's more of a season saver because the season 0-2, there's a very high chance you do not make the playoffs.
Exactly.
So instead of season changing, I would almost say saving because I think we're in this. It's not changing maybe how the rest of the schedule is going to go or the rest of the season is going to go, but I think it just saved us at this point already. It's early, but 0-2 puts you in a really bad spot for the future. So I think it just saved the season in general. Geno Smith played out of his mind.
Right.
With exception of his one bad part of the game. Even if you look at his stats, he was 32 of 41, 328 with 2 touchdowns, no picks, and 1 sack. And that 1 sack was that 17-yard, really bad sack. That was his only down moment of the game. Outside of that, like the guy played a pretty 10 out of 10, like perfect game. I can't recall many bad throws or
bad decisions. There was one decision where I think it was end of the second quarter, I want to say, on third down, he threw the ball into the flat that should have been picked off. And then we ended up settling for a field goal. But other than that, I think he played a basically flawless game. And I think that's 2 games now, right? He has no picks on the season.
I can't remember if he threw a pick last game, but I would not say I wouldn't say he was flawless last game.
No, last game he wasn't. But I mean, just in general,
last game he threw for 112 yards. Yeah. So I mean, last game was not very good. But
I was talking about today's game. But what I wanted to say was, if he didn't throw a pick, I mean, I would say going into the season, you'd say probably like the only concern of Geno Smith is like weakness is turning over the ball, right? Like that's kind of what he's been known for as a weakness. And it is really nice to see through 2 games that he's been pretty clean with not turning over the football.
Yeah. I don't know. 11 picks last year is not that bad. 17-game season. I don't even think I'd consider that a weakness.
Dak Prescott led the NFL with 15.
Yeah, so 11's not that bad.
Yeah, no, I think that's like the top 5 most picks in the NFL. So I'd say that would be his like.
You would consider Geno Smith. You think like if you were talking to him, like, what's your weakness? They would say like, oh yeah, I have a problem throwing interceptions.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, if you ask people who are like the. Like, what is their lowest point of view, right? Like, what is your, I guess, like, what's your, if you could say, your strength, what's your biggest strength? Taking care of a football, A, B, C, D. I would say his least, like, good trait is, okay. And that's why he had a problem with the Jets.
But let me tell you who had more picks than him last year. Dak Prescott, Davis Mills, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Josh Allen, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and then him and Russell Wilson are tied for 11 with 11. So every top 5 quarterback has more picks than him. So I wouldn't say it's a problem. Maybe you're saying that's like the one thing you can point out, but
that's what I meant.
He didn't have an interception issue last year. 30 touchdowns, 11 picks. He's in the more of the middle ground.
I'm not calling him Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, I just named every top 5 quarterback had more picks than him last year. So I wouldn't even like the no pick so far doesn't shock me. I just think for me it's more the dude this last game just played flawless. The sack itself, the bad one, I think he thought he could do something heroic for a second. I think at some point he realized
I think he was trying to throw the ball away. He just never gotten far out of the pocket and panicked.
And he knew at that point, like, I'm not going to get anything good out of this if I throw a pick. Like, we might as well punt. So I'm going to just take the sack and see what happens from here. So I feel like it was almost strategic at by the end of the sack.
Yeah.
But it was a bad sack. That was his only real problem in this game. And it was impressive overall because I think as a Seahawks fan, that's something that we really wanted to see. Because after last week and after last season, I guess one of the bigger question marks is like, can Geno Smith get better or is he going to get worse? We gave him a contract, and as we all know, whether you love or hate Geno Smith, whatever it is, all we know is that last year was his only good season of his career, right? So
Absolutely.
It was kind of a question mark going into this year. Week 1 was tough overall for everyone, so I didn't even judge him off that. But it was really good to see this week, like, oh, okay, Geno Smith is actually a good quarterback still, and it wasn't a 1-year fluke. And obviously one game doesn't tell the whole season story, but you could just see that he has the same confidence that he did last year, and it looks like it can work out the same way it did last year. Which I think if he does continue to play like this comeback story becomes even more wild if he does it 2 years in a row.
Absolutely. Here's one thing I did want to talk about this game, just looking through some of the notes, is are we done panicking? Like, are the Seahawks fans ready to get back on board? Because after last week, you thought the sky was falling. And I'm just looking at how the schedule falls here. And we got the Panthers, and the Giants are just getting their butt kicked right now by the Arizona Cardinals. So
17-0, by the way, to the Arizona Cardinals, the team that like people are making fun of for being like the most obvious tank in history.
Yeah, so, all of a sudden, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much here, but with the Panthers and Giants coming up the next 2 weeks, we could really see a place where the Seahawks head into their bye week 3-1. And, I would say it's more likely, looking at the schedule, that they end up 3-1 than not 3-1.
Yeah. I think, especially the Giants are clearly like something's wrong, right? They lost by 40 to Dallas. Because going into the season, I looked at that Giants game saying probably a tough one, right?
Yeah.
And we have a tough schedule after that bye week, week 5. So
well, maybe because now I'm looking at I just got a report right now that Joe Burrow re-aggravated his calf injury. He might not be. Who knows if it's bad or not bad?
Yeah, but that's 4 weeks from now.
Yeah, I know you're saying after that. But then after that, we got the Cardinals, who might be one of the worst teams in football. So until our 7th game of the season, it's pretty nice if Burrow's, hopefully he's not hurt. You never want to root for that.
And the Cardinals, I don't know, dude. They almost
actually, Command. Yeah, maybe the Cardinals are good.
The Cardinals lost.
That's supposed to be not good. That becomes good in the NFL every single season.
Yeah, remember, the Cardinals only lost by 4 to the Commanders, and now they're up 17-0 on the Giants. Like, that team is quickly debunking the tank for Caleb case. But
yeah,
they're obviously not supposed to be a good team. But then again, they do have a new coach. You never know, like rallying the team. He's not trying to tank.
Yeah, remember they were making a lot of fun of him for his speeches on social media. And then remember who else was being made fun of for the speeches on social media?
Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, and he ended up being a pretty good coach.
Yeah.
So
remember Jonathan Gannon came in, looked at Buda Baker, who I think it was, and he was doing the
yeah,
bombs.
exactly.
He was like, bombs. Passes. And I was like, dude, what is he saying?
Well, look, if he does become good, it's going to become a trend to find the quirkiest coach you can find in the NFL.
A lot of them are. Mike McDaniel is the quirkiest fucking dude ever, too, for the Dolphins. Yeah. He's been great. But I'll never get over that. I remember when I saw those clips, Jonathan Gannon, he walked and he saw Kyler Murray. Remember he did like the loudest dap? It was, hey! And like slapped him. And then he looked at Buda Baker, bombs. And everyone was like, all right, dude, this guy is odd. But maybe they believe in themselves because they have Kyler Murray that could come back and they hate him.
And that's what athletes do. Like, yeah. I know we always talk about this, like, oh, this team's going to tank or this team's going to suck and this team's going to do this. And, like, there's all this noise. Like the Seahawks this week, right? Everyone on Seahawks Twitter, YouTube, everyone's, oh, Seahawks are cooked. After week 1, don't we see it's, like, time to get rid of everyone. And the players probably sat there in the locker room and like, what is everyone talking about? We're totally fine. Let's go to practice. Let's go beat Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty clear on Twitter. I think you and I are probably some of the more optimistic ones this week. Yeah. It's pretty clear. I was saying that I know Charles Cross is out. I know Abe Lucas is out. But there was just something, I hate to sound corny, but there was something like just in my feelings, that like the Seahawks team knows that this season is an important ass season, right? Like they went all in. They brought back Bobby Wagner. They paid Draymond Jones $55 million, who finally got a sack. I did feel like I haven't seen him. I didn't even notice him on the field for the first 2 games until he got that sack.
We had 1 or 2 sacks today?
We had one by Trey Brown.
Yeah.
And which was random. It was Trey Brown, and then you got a pick 6 the next play. That was we'll get to that in a second. I actually wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
And then Draymond Jones. I think it was 2. And there might have been one, no, it was Trey Brown of Derek Hall, I think, or Cameron Young on the play, like a half sack, and yes, I think it was 2. But at the end of the game, the pass rush looked a lot better than way it did. But you got me off track for a second. So
sorry.
My point was, despite the injuries, at the end of the day, sometimes I know offensive linemen are extremely important, but if your quarterback plays well, there's some quarterbacks that play well even with bad offensive lines, right? There's ways to like roll out of the pocket, get things done. They established a pretty good run game today and found a way to establish the run game while also getting the pass game going. It was a very balanced game. I mean, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns in the air. And you almost, I know it was only 43 yards for Kenneth Walker, but they were struggling to get him down on a lot of tackles. Like he was bouncing off a lot of hits. He had those 2 touchdowns. There was a good balance. And sometimes, even if your offensive line has a lot of backups in it, if you're causing some balance, the defense, if you're not very predictable, I guess, right? The offensive line can play better, even though they're not your starting guys. So I think they did a good job of not being predictable. And that's what I was hoping they'd do. The Seahawks are smart. There was no way this team, the way they built it, was going to go down 0-2 to start the year. That's how I felt.
That's how I felt too. I mean, we were it was like such a classic. Like you see, we posted on our Sports on Tap our free money 5s, our 5 picks of the week, and they weren't very good. But the one I was sure of was the Seahawks +5, and it just that theory. One team looks way too good in week 1, one team looks way too bad in week 1, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
By the way, you said they're not very good. My picks are okay this year. I'm 3-1 this week. So
okay.
I went from 1-4 last week to 3-1 this week. I
started off 1-2 so far, but
I'm telling you that the week 1 is way harder to predict, dude, in my eyes. But like me, you're better at week 1. Me, week 1, like I couldn't do it. Like I just can't figure out who's gonna play. Like, well, you look at teams like the Seahawks, right? They played, like ass week 1, and they come out this week when nobody expects it. But we know, because we're Seahawks fans, that this is kind of some of the fuckery that they do. And we had a feeling that they'd find a way to pull it off, and they did. And I guess one thing I really wanted to mention is the injuries have been wild, right? The way we've had to maneuver. I mean, like Tariq Woolen left in the middle of the game, and then you had DK Metcalf leaving and then you had Evan Brown. And you're just like, well, go ahead if you want to listen.
No,
you're just repeating them as I'm saying it.
Well, you were saying it slow, so I thought you were thinking about who they were, so I was trying to help you out there.
No, I know who they are. And we had all of our replacements going in on top of already. There was a point in the game when we already had, obviously, Cross and Lucas are out, and then Brown goes down. We're playing with 3 out of 5 backup offensive linemen. And then the defense, obviously, losing Tariq Woolen, who's probably your best player on defense, somewhere between him and Bobby Wagner, right? But he's younger, so I'll just give it to Tariq. Probably our best player on defense right now. But then you have just these guys like Trey Brown, who was not even like on the starting depth chart this week, technically, right? Because he was like 4th on it or whatever. He came out and literally at the very important moment of a game gets a sack as a corner, and the next play a pick 6. And I feel like this is just what the Seahawks team does. Like it's just like, yeah, all shit's hitting the fan, everyone's getting hurt, but it's just these random guys that are like that fit the Seahawks culture and somehow make these big plays when we need them. Because there were so many times where we're just seeing those injuries roll in, George, and I was like, there's no way. Like I don't know how we're going to sustain. But the Seahawks always find a way to just have these like random backups that are really good enough at their job.
Yeah, that's coaching. Pretty simple. I mean, Pete Carroll's a great coach, and I think Pete Carroll, out of all coaches in the NFL, but if there's a coach that will make you believe in yourself despite being a backup, it's probably Pete Carroll.
Yeah, he has as we've talked about, I think, on this podcast before, is a lot of people can get, kind of, over the rah-rah happiness part. Not like rah-rah like Dan Campbell, but like the happiness rah-rah, like kumbaya, everything's all right, we're like happy Seahawks. But I think when you have young players, especially, which the Seahawks do have a lot of young players on this team, it's a really positive mindset, like that always next man up and always being like positive. I think you've talked about it with me a lot recently. We talked about it with Nick Saban in Alabama, who played an awful game against USF yesterday. Like, it was tied 3-3 at halftime, and the Patriots, who have not been the same team. A lot of these old cranky guys, Pete Carroll's the opposite for an old guy, but these old cranky coaches, like, it doesn't motivate players as much as it used to. Not the same way as this generation that likes somebody to be freaking positive once in a while with them.
That's so true. I think that old like theory that the football coach has to be hard and that's for a better word. I think it's gone. I think people like nice people. We see, look at Deion Sanders in Colorado. Like, he's a perfect example. Like that, and that's working. Why? Because there's something about being fun, motivation. You have a culture of like happiness and enlightenment that works better than the culture of fear. Like, Bill Belichick is a culture of fear. Like, his running backs, you fumble, you're probably not playing again. Like, imagine just going through that every time. You throw a pick, am I getting benched? Like, that doesn't work.
Yeah. You have to, like, play in fear kind of at all times,
Yeah.
which I think there's a good part of, like, when you mention someone like Deion Sanders or, somebody like Deion Sanders, some would consider him a little cocky, or maybe he is sometimes mean, or you can say some things that don't come off like the right way because he's just being himself. But I think the main part is he's being himself, right?
Right.
And I think players sense that, like, this guy's genuine. When he yells at me, that means I actually did do something wrong. So I'm not just getting yelled at to be yelled at. And if he's happy with me. And I think the same thing with like Pete Carroll. I've seen Pete Carroll have to talk down DK when he does something dumb, or tell Geno to relax on the sideline. But Pete Carroll feels genuine. I genuinely don't think, like, actually I know, like, when Bill Belichick is sitting there and like just stares you down like angrily, like, there's no way he lives his everyday life like that, right? It doesn't feel genuine. It feels like he's trying to be a football coach.
Right. It seems like a shtick. Yeah. Really, it does.
Yeah, and no offense, obviously the guy's won 6 Super Bowls, and we talked about
I think it used to work. I just don't think it works anymore.
Yeah, because you need the Pete Carroll way is really, I think, just like you said, he makes people believe.
I think it's revolutionary. I think he was like, he's the first one to start it. I mean, he was like, that was his thing when he became the Seahawks coach. Is he too collegiate? Meaning, is he too fun?
USC wasn't that happy about the hire either when he first became USC's coach. You remember, he was like, he has a different style. He didn't work out at different places. Like, he was never like super going into a situation. He's never had like the greatest thumbs up from people, and then he goes places and it works.
Yeah. So shout out to Pete Carroll. Honestly, I think from now on, any Seahawks fan who says, you can complain, but I'm tired of Seahawks fans who say they want Pete Carroll out. This is gonna be. This might become. I mean, seriously. Like, let's be real for a second. He was gonna probably be, and it's gonna be very hard to ever have a better coach than Pete Carroll at the Seattle Seahawks.
We might never in our lifetime, like, while we're all alive listening to this, including you and I, we might never see our football team go to back-to-back Super Bowls, let alone win one of them. Like, there's a chance we go the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, not even see our team make a Super Bowl. To let alone go back to back, right? We should have probably won 2. I know I hate to say the should have, could have, would have, whatever, but realistically, we're
one
inches
play
away. Yeah.
That's even better. We're inches away from winning 2 Super Bowls.
It wasn't the Denver Super Bowl where we won by 40, like, against Denver. Like, we were actually a play away from winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that would have been a 2-time national championship, 2-time Super Bowl coach. But he's 72.
And then all the rankings come out, and he's always out of the top 10. So.
Yeah. He's 72, okay? So even if you want him out, he's probably going to be out in the next 3 to 5 years, right? Like, there's going to be some point where he decides he's done because he's 72. So just fucking enjoy the ride. He's the best coach in our franchise history. He's one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, in the total football. I'm not saying, like, specifically college or specifically NFL, but if you look at college or just, like, football, because there's not many people. I think he's one of only 2 or 3 people to win a national championship and Super Bowl.
Yeah, so, Jimmy Johnson being the other one.
Yeah. There's one more, I thought. Was it Bear? No, Bear Bryant stayed out.
No,
who was
there might be one more, but I know it was Jimmy Johnson, and I think Shula. I think Don Shula.
I have to look this up. I'm going to ask Siri, George.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What coaches have won an NFL Super Bowl and a national championship? This feels like a Siri ad or something, an Apple ad. Okay, there's 3 of them, I think. Yeah. Switzer? Barry Switzer.
Oh, Barry Switzer. There we go.
Where did he making one of only 3 coaches to win a college national championship and Super Bowl. So he won with Dallas. Do you know what college he coached?
Oklahoma. I'm pretty sure about that. I could be wrong. Oklahoma.
Yeah, you're right. And then Pete Carroll was USC and Seattle, and Johnson was Miami?
Miami and Cowboys.
Cowboys, yeah. Okay, so one of 3 coaches ever to do both. So
and the only one to
complain.
do it with not the Cowboys.
That's true. The only one to do it not with the Cowboys. And a West Coast college team.
School.
Not many West Coast college teams win national championships, by the way. It's not a very
Huskies and USC.
Has there ever been another one?
I don't know. I don't know if UCLA won in the 70s or anything, but
yeah, but since the 90s, I think those are the only 2. The rest is SEC teams and
exactly.
ACC. Pretty crazy. Well, one more thing, George, before we wrap up today. I know everybody will probably, if you're wondering, we will talk about next week and moving forward and maybe some of the negatives to pay attention to, but as George said, try to keep it positive today. We'll do that later this week, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe and like, all that jazz. The one thing I did want to talk about is, so how do I put this the right way? All right. I'm putting a petition for me and you is today, after watching Devin Witherspoon, I realized we jumped the gun a little too quick. Everybody's jumping the gun a little too quick on the Jalen Carter, Devin Witherspoon comparisons. I know I watched him and thought the same thing, damn, generational talent, look how good he is. But at the end of the day, after watching today, I realized I got to give this guy a chance first. Because what if he becomes the best, one of the top 5 corners in the league? Then it probably would have worked out. So
okay, fair enough.
I'll take that. And he made some big plays. He did make a mistake or 2, but it was his first game, and then Tariq Woolen was out. But he had to play in some big moments today where he was the number 1 corner. So respect to him. Also, the Eagles' defensive line has a lot of other talent on it, like Fletcher Cox.
That does help.
That probably helps. I mean, I'm not so certain that Jalen Carter would make the same plays with the Seahawks defensive line.
Exactly. Yeah, fair enough.
You got to give the guy his chance, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Whether you have to, you don't. He's on our team, so they're not getting Jalen Carter. So let's just, you're right. Let's give him a chance.
Yeah, and our pass rush was okay today. We actually we obviously need help stopping receivers too. So
absolutely.
Yeah, we might have lucked out a little bit, George, with a little bit of the Amon St. Brown injury and the David Montgomery injury. It kind of slowed down their offense.
Yeah, but Reynolds really tore us up.
Yeah, there's a lot of tearing up, but guess what? Got the win.
Not today.
Yeah, not today. Hey, we got the win, so I'm happy. I think that's everything. I think we covered everything. Talked about the defense, the offense, the coach. Yeah.
I love the shades.
What shades?
The W shades.
Oh, the Tyler Lockett's?
Yeah, and other players are wearing them now too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, did you see Jarek Reed?
We should put that on a T-shirt and sell it.
W's?
Yep. W glasses.
Check out sontshop.com, S-O-N-T shop.com. I was going to say something, but also Jarek Reed took one of the ski masks that the fans were wearing, wore it in the locker room and started dancing. It was pretty badass. I love it. I'll throw that. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast audio, you won't see it, but on YouTube, I'll throw it on the screen. So you'll probably see it.
Perfect.
All right, guys. I think that's everything. Go
everything.
Hawks.
Go Hawks. Can't wait till next week. Rookie quarterback. Let's eat up Bryce Young.
Yeah, for real. As always, make sure you like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, Apple, or any other platform there. Please leave a review, follow on that platform, whatever you can do, share with a friend. Any support is appreciated. And as I just said, actually, we are going to be launching a lot of new lines on our shop, SONT shop.com, stands for Sports on Tap. So sontshop.com. Get on there and check out what we got. There's nothing on there right now, but there's an email box, and there'll be some stuff on there this week. So make sure you check that out. And I think that's everything.
That's it.
All right. Much love, y'all. And George, you know what we like to say.
Hey, thanks for stopping by.